We live in a world of noise. Everyone has something to say. Everyone needs to be heard. Everyone thinks the loudest man wins, but Machiavelli knew better. He knew that the loudest man reveals himself the fastest, that those who speak too much give away their position, their emotion, their leverage, without even realizing it. And so he chose a weapon most people overlook: selective silence. Not passivity, not avoidance, but weaponized absence. A silence so controlled, so cold, so unpredictable that people reshaped their behavior around it. Because when a man like that stops speaking, you feel it. Silence is not a lack of communication. It's a strategy. Let's be clear. This is not about being quiet for the sake of peace. It's about choosing when not to speak, so that your silence carries a message more powerful than your words ever could. Machiavelli saw words as currency. Use them too often, and they become cheap. Use them too freely, and they become predictable. Use them at the wrong time, and they become evidence against you. But use them sparingly, use them with precision, and now every word becomes a weapon, and every pause becomes a pressure point. The world is conditioned to expect your reaction. People push you, they insult you, bait you, test you, emotionally poke at you, because they expect you to respond, to explain, to defend, to prove your intention. But Machiavelli understood something critical. If they can predict your voice, they will never respect your silence. So you teach them early that you're not afraid to stay silent, that you don't play emotional ping-pong, that when you withdraw, it means something's about to shift. And when that shift comes, it's never loud. It's surgical. When you stop speaking, they start thinking. This is the inversion. You don't dominate people by out-talking them. You dominate them by disrupting their rhythm. In silence, they fill the space with anxiety. Did I go too far? What is he thinking? What is he planning? Why isn't he reacting? The absence of your voice becomes a mirror, and the more they stare into it, the more they project their fears onto it. Machiavelli knew this wasn't weakness. It was psychological control, because people aren't afraid of what you say. They're afraid of what they can't anticipate. Never speak when your silence forces a reveal. Here's where silence becomes devastating. When someone disrespects you and you say nothing. When someone betrays you and you disappear. When someone lies and you don't correct them. They think they won. They think they're in control. But what you're doing is giving them just enough space to reveal everything: their insecurity, their pattern, their need for your validation. And once revealed, now you strike, not with words, but with distance, with consequence, with a power they didn't expect. When you speak too soon, you save them from guilt. Think about it. Someone crosses a line and you respond instantly. You give them a way out, a reason to play the victim, a new conflict to focus on. But silence leaves them alone with what they did. It doesn't rescue, it doesn't redirect. It lets the guilt sink in until it becomes unbearable. Machiavelli didn't need to shout. He needed people to feel the absence of his voice until they regretted triggering it. Not all silence is strength, and not all speech is weakness. Machiavelli never told us to stay quiet at all costs. He told us to speak only when it increases our control. And that means identifying the exact scenarios where words weaken your influence, and silence does what speech never could. It unsettles, it reveals, it dominates. When you're being provoked publicly, called out, mocked, challenged in front of others, everyone waits for your response. But you say nothing, because the moment you speak, you've entered their arena. Now the spotlight is on your reaction, not their disrespect. Machiavelli would let them speak themselves into a corner. He'd let the silence build tension until the crowd turns to them and thinks, why does he keep talking while the other just watches? And when your silence doesn't break, they'll feel it. The audience shifts. They realize you've already won, not by arguing, but by refusing to kneel to performance. When you're being gaslit or manipulated, someone tries to distort the truth, twist your words, flip your emotion against you. This is when most people start defending themselves, clarifying, over-explaining. But Machiavelli would do none of that. He knew if you let them redefine the frame, you've already lost the war, even if you win the point. So instead, he'd go cold. No argument, no emotional chase. Just silence, heavy, loaded, final. And the manipulator starts unraveling, because manipulation only works when you're engaged. Once you stop reacting, they lose the script. After you've been disrespected and they know it, this is where most people get it wrong. Someone crosses a line, and you immediately react. You tell them how hurt you are. You confront them emotionally. You offer them a way to fix it. But here's the problem. The moment you speak first, you become the one seeking resolution. Machiavelli would withdraw, not as revenge, but as proof. Proof that your time, presence, and voice are not guaranteed, even to those closest to you. That silence rewrites the dynamic. Now, they don't just feel bad, they feel powerless because they no longer control the pace of the relationship. You do. When they expect you to fight for your place, this one is subtle and deadly. Sometimes people will pull back affection, delay replies, play distant, withhold validation. Why? To bait you, to see if you'll chase, to test if your ego depends on their attention. And most people fail this test. They speak, they ask, they beg, but Machiavelli would disappear entirely. No demand for attention, no request for clarity, no desire for closure. Because true power isn't shown when you speak up for your worth. It's shown when your absence makes them question theirs. In rooms where your silence speaks louder than any statement, you're at the table. Everyone is talking, competing to be heard, over-explaining, over-justifying. And you observe. You say little, speak only once, if at all. And when you do, it lands like a final word, because in a world where people are addicted to their own voice, restraint is terrifying. They wonder, why isn't he trying to prove himself? What does he know that we don't? Why do I feel like he's already decided something? Machiavelli understood this dynamic that in certain rooms, not speaking is dominance, and those who speak first often reveal their desperation for approval. You don't need to announce your value. You prove it by holding it back. In every room, there's a point where speech stops working. You must feel it, study it, respect it. Because once you master when not to speak, you'll notice something strange. You gain more influence in silence than most do with 1,000 well-crafted arguments. And those who once poked at your silence now fall silent when you enter the room. Most people think silence is just silence, but that's not how Machiavelli saw it. To him, silence was a scalpel, not a blanket. Each type had a purpose, a pressure point, a specific psychological consequence. And when used with precision, silence becomes the most misunderstood and devastating language of power. Let's break down the 4 types and how to use each like a master. First, the silence of mystery, power through unknowability. This is the silence that says, you'll never fully know what I think, feel, or plan. You keep your goals unclear. You speak less about your process. You don't respond to passive-aggressive remarks. You never explain your silence. Why? Because predictability breeds comfort, and comfort breeds assumption. The moment people can read you, they start managing you. But when you remain unreadable, they lean in. They hesitate before speaking. They assume you know more than you show. Machiavelli would withhold just enough to stay present, but never enough to be figured out. Mystery isn't passive, it's surgical ambiguity, and it makes every word you do say 10 times more potent. Second, the silence of judgment, dominance through stillness. This silence isn't calm, it's heavy. It makes people feel like they've been put under a microscope. You stay quiet when someone says something stupid, someone lies to you, someone expects your approval, or someone makes a weak excuse. You don't challenge them. You don't laugh. You don't nod. You just hold eye contact and let the silence hang. What happens? They break. They fill the space with nervous words. They backtrack. They confess. They self-correct. Because silence in moments of judgment makes people feel watched, not seen. And nothing is more terrifying to a liar than a man who just listens. Third, the silence of consequence. Withdrawal as punishment. This is your sharpest weapon. Someone disrespects you, you don't argue, you vanish. No speech, no warning, just cold, total removal of access. You don't explain, you don't threaten, you don't re-engage unless they show transformation. This silence trains people like nothing else. My presence was a privilege, not a default setting. And when they don't hear from you, they spiral. They stalk your silence. They talk to others trying to understand it. They remember you at every hour you used to fill. This is how Machiavelli punished people, not with vengeance, but with absence. Because absence triggers something arguments never could: regret. Fourth, the silence of composure, control in chaos. This silence is most useful in conflict. Someone yells, you don't. Someone blames you, you don't flinch. Someone tries to rattle you, you breathe slower. Because the most emotionally dominant person in any argument is not the one with the best points. It's the one with the most control. Machiavelli never played games where others dictated the tone. His silence said, this conversation happens on my terms, and if not, it doesn't happen at all. This doesn't mean you never speak. It means you never respond at the speed of their emotion. That calm unsettles everyone, because it makes you uncounterable, and people fear what they can't provoke. Silence is not one tool, it's a full arsenal. Each silence serves a different purpose. Mystery for control, judgment for dominance, withdrawal for correction, composure for emotional warfare. And when you master them all, you become the man who never raises his voice, but never has to, because people start adjusting their behavior before you even speak. Here's the trick Machiavelli understood better than anyone. People don't regret what they lost. They regret what they can no longer reach. It's not about what you said. It's not even about what happened. It's about what your silence now represents. Once you master this dynamic, people will start feeling your absence like a punishment, even when they were the ones who chose distance. Silence creates the illusion that they never really had you. When you react emotionally to someone leaving, they feel like they controlled the moment. They see themselves as the one who walked. They feel powerful. But when you go silent, no texts, no response, no reaction, no narrative, now the story starts shifting in their mind. They begin to ask, was he even that invested? Did I ever really affect him? What did I just give up? Your lack of noise rewrites their memory. It fractures their certainty, and Machiavelli knew uncertainty is more devastating than rejection. When they walk away, you don't follow. You vanish. This is where most people fail. Someone leaves and they reach out, leave the door open, try to keep things cordial. Machiavelli would never do this. He knew that silence after betrayal isn't just maturity, it's psychological warfare. When they leave and expect a response but get stillness, they feel like they just opened a door that locked behind them. And now the panic sets in. Was this a test I failed? Did I overestimate my value? Why isn't he fighting for me? Because what they really wanted was the power of being missed. And your silence denies them that power completely. Give no clarity, force their imagination to do the damage. You don't say, you hurt me, you'll miss me, or I'm done. That's noise. And noise gives them closure, gives them certainty, gives them ground to stand on. But silence gives them nothing to hold on to. It's an open loop that their mind keeps trying to close. and every attempt to decode your silence makes you more powerful in their memory. Maybe he didn't care. Maybe I overplayed my hand. Maybe I wasn't as important as I thought. Silence becomes a mirror, and they start seeing everything they tried to ignore. Never announce your exit. Make it felt. The moment you say, "I'm done, I'm cutting you off," or "you'll regret this," you've already lost power because you gave them an ending, a conclusion. Machiavelli never did that. He vanished and let the silence write the rest of the story. People never know when it's final. And that not knowing is what breaks them. They refresh their DMs. They revisit old messages. They post, hoping you'll see. They talk about you just loud enough for word to travel back. And all of it is born from the same realization. I'm not in control anymore, and I might have never been. Your absence must feel unrecoverable. You know what keeps them coming back? The hope that maybe, just maybe, you'll return, that they can reach you like before, that things are still flexible, that the bond is still alive. But when your silence becomes final, absolute, airtight, it leaves a scar. They don't see you as someone they dated, worked with, or called a friend. They see you as a warning, a mistake they'll try not to repeat, but never fully recover from. Because when you go silent, like Machiavelli, you don't leave a door cracked. You disappear from the building. Machiavelli didn't speak to be understood. He spoke to move pieces. And when you reach that level of power, your silence becomes more terrifying than most people's loudest threats. Because once people realize, if he speaks, it's over, they start recalibrating everything around you, not out of respect, but out of caution. Let's build that identity. You must kill the need to be heard. Most people talk because they fear being misunderstood. They over-explain, overshare, correct every wrong assumption. But Machiavelli didn't care if people misunderstood him. He cared if they underestimated him. That's the difference. You must learn to let people misread you and still be fine with it. Because the more you correct every perception, the more you reveal your emotional fragility. But when someone lies about you and you say nothing, dismisses you and you don't flinch, doubts you and you don't defend, now you become untouchable, not because they agree with you, but because they can't get to you. Become the most unpredictable presence in the room. You speak rarely, but when you do, it ends conversations, alters directions, changes dynamics. This only works if your silence is disciplined. You don't jump into gossip, argue on impulse, join conversations that lead nowhere, or speak to fill voids. You stay quiet until the moment has maximum impact. And when you speak, it feels like a shift in temperature. This is why people start watching your body language, not your words. They're trying to read what you haven't said yet. That's not charisma. That's weaponized presence. Never repeat yourself. This is where silence becomes your boundary. If you've already stated a standard, already expressed a limit, already called something out once, you never explain it again. No reminders. No nagging. No, "I already told you." You speak it once, then enforce it with silence. The absence of repetition becomes the punishment, and people start remembering your standards because forgetting them comes at the cost of losing access to your voice. Train yourself to withhold commentary. You're in a conversation. They expect your take, your opinion, your validation, but you give them nothing. Not because you don't have thoughts, but because your silence makes them reflect, doubt, adjust. This makes you magnetic in group dynamics because you're not the one always reacting. You're the one they're watching to see if you will. And that anticipation gives you more psychological control than any argument ever could. Machiavelli mastered this, the ability to shift a room without changing his tone or volume. Let silence reveal your strengths. When you talk too much about what you've achieved, what you've overcome, what you're working on, you cheapen it. Let others find out late. Let your success slap them in the face after they assumed you were nothing. Because people respect what surprises them, not what you constantly advertise. This silence isn't mystery, it's reputation armor. And once you make it a habit, people stop asking what you're up to. They start watching you more closely, afraid of what you're building that they no longer have access to. Build a reputation of unanswered power. You don't need to bark. You don't need to fight. You don't need to warn. Your silence becomes a signal, a trigger, a reputation. And eventually, your silence is no longer a choice. It's an identity. They don't wait for you to speak. They change how they behave because they know if you ever do, it won't be pretty. Silence can dominate a conversation, but disappearing at the right moment rewrites your legacy. Machiavelli understood one of the darkest and most brilliant truths of power. Sometimes the most commanding thing you can do is leave, not with a meltdown, not with a warning, not with a monologue, but with nothing. Because when you leave at your peak, when they still want more from you, you become myth, not memory. When you stay too long, you start to rot. Most people overstay their relevance. They explain too much, defend too long, remain available until they're no longer respected. You think you're helping. You think you're holding on. But you're just giving people more chances to forget your value. Machiavelli would say, "Withdraw when you are strongest and let them chase a ghost they'll never reach again." Because once people realize you've left on your terms, they have to sit with everything they never said, never fixed, never appreciated. That silence becomes their prison. Make your disappearance look like evolution, not escape. You don't ghost them in rage. You don't vanish to provoke them. You simply shift. Your focus changes. Your energy elevates. Your time disappears because your life has moved into a space they no longer belong in. No announcements. No emotional leaks. Just quiet forward motion. Now they can't frame you as bitter or broken because everything about your silence screams, "I didn't lose you. I outgrew you." Leave right before they expect you to. This is the art of anticipation. If they expect you to keep explaining, keep justifying, keep repairing, and instead you vanish. You create a psychological cliff. They lean forward and there's nothing there. That emotional whiplash haunts them more than any closure ever could. You leave before the story wraps. So they finish it in their own mind, and it never ends well for them. That's not immaturity. That's strategy. Because silence forces them to see their role in your absence. Loud words would have given them an excuse. Let them speak about you while you say nothing back. Eventually, they'll talk. They'll tell others what happened, try to control the narrative, assume they know your side. Let them. Their need to explain proves your power. Your refusal to engage proves your indifference. And indifference is what breaks them, because now they're explaining themselves to people who didn't ask, while you are silent, unbothered, absent, but still pulling attention like gravity. Machiavelli's greatest weapon was not revenge. It was the silence that made people destroy themselves, trying to understand him. Silence leaves a trail they can't escape. You don't need to punish them. You don't need to wait for an apology. You don't need to finish the story. You just vanish with calmness, so unsettling, they start seeing you in every silence that follows, every message they don't get, every room they walk into wondering if you're there, every conversation where your name comes up, and they flinch. They tried to break you. Instead, you left the room and took the oxygen with you. The final form, silence that rewrites memory. When you speak rarely, you are respected. When you leave without warning, you are remembered. When you vanish without closure, you become a lesson. Machiavelli never needed to be liked. He needed to be feared, remembered, and studied. And you have become the man who doesn't shout, who doesn't beg, who doesn't chase. Because your voice was powerful, but your absence was divine.